Today we are here in Stroud Cemetery, but my story starts off just up the hill at the old Stroud Workhouse. Now the person I'm going to be talking about, Charles Ireland, he is buried somewhere in this cemetery. In fact, he's almost certainly buried in an unmarked pauper's grave. Now, Charles Ireland lived in the workhouse in Stroud. The workhouse was set up as part of the New Poor Law. This was the idea that if you were poor and destitute, you'd be removed from regular society and you would basically be taken to a workhouse. If you have ever read Oliver Twist, then you will know the way that they were treated was horrendous. Now, this is particularly the case for the workhouse here in Stroud, and the stories are even worse than the ones you might have read in Dickens. On September the 8th, 1849, Charles was taken down for a bath. Now on this day, we know that another inmate arrived with cholera. Now cholera is an incredibly infectious disease, so the whole of the workhouse was in uproar. Now all 500 inmates were only looked after by 7 people, and they were all busy basically tending to this cholera patient, trying to wash him down, making sure he didn't infect anyone else, which meant that basically Charles was left in the care of another inmate. Now the waters of the bath were heated by a massive boiler and looked after by a group of men known as the firemen. These men were all busy, they were all on break, which meant the water was just heating up, getting hotter and hotter. Now when it reached about 80 degrees, which is incredibly hot, Charles started to scream. At this point, the man who was looking after him, rather than letting him out of the bath, pushed him back in, at which point the water continued to rise. It rose to 125 degrees Celsius, well above boiling, at which point Charles's screams were filling the whole of the workhouse, and still he was forced back into the bath. In the end, once the cholera patient had been dealt with and the rest of the carers came to find Charles, he was covered in burns, he'd been badly scalded, and he ended up dying. Now this became quite a scandal for Stroud, this poor boy who'd been boiled alive in the workhouse just up there. And I'd like to say that this resulted in a massive reform where workhouses were changed, where the care was improved for poor people, but no. What they did is they reduced the funding to Stroud Workhouse. So actually, the only 7 people that were looking after the people in the workhouse was reduced. They had less funding, less people, and in fact conditions became worse. This is a really difficult story to hear, I know, but it's also really important. You have headstones for lots of grand, wealthy, famous people, and you have people like Charles who lived really difficult lives, but they are part of our history. And he's buried somewhere here, even though you will never see his headstone. So next time you go to a cemetery or graveyard, remember all the people that you can't see.